was thrown into a dark den for remaining faithful to my God. Just because I would not stop praying, the world rose up against me hard. The doors were shut behind my back, and silence felt like the end. I could hear the roaring lions, and fear tried to break my strength. But deep inside the lion's den, I was never truly alone. There was a presence walking with me, turning fear into hope. My God sent his angel and shut the lions' mouths, so that they have not hurt me, because I was found innocent before him. Lions cannot touch whom God protects, not even the den can win. When heaven decides to guard a life, no darkness can pull me in. What looked like my final judgment became a story of his power. For the God who shuts the lions' mouths carries me through every hour. The night felt never-ending, but peace began to rise. In the place where I should have perished, God opened up my eyes. The lions were all around me, but they could not touch my soul. For an unseen hand of mercy was keeping me whole. How many have been thrown into danger for refusing to deny their prayer? But those who trust the living God will always find him there. He sends his angels at the right time. He never fails to save. And even in the deepest darkness, he turns the dead into grace. My God sent his angel and shut the lions' mouths, so that they have not hurt me, because I was found innocent before him. The lions cannot touch whom God protects. The dead is not my end. The same God who stood with Daniel is still my faithful friend. And if today you are in the darkness, do not think your story is done. The God who shut the lions' mouths will stay with you till the sun. The den may be dark, but God is still inside. Sores covered every part of my body. Pain would not let me rest. Sitting among ashes in silence, I felt my strength fading away. Everything I once possessed was gone. My days no longer carried light. The nights were heavy and endless, and sorrow followed every step. Then I heard a familiar voice from someone who once walked beside me. But those words pierced my heart like the coldest wind in the desert. She said, "Do you still hold fast your integrity? Curse God and die." But my soul held on to hope, even when everything seemed lost. If we accept good from God, should we not also endure trouble? Though wounded, I kept believing. Though broken, I chose to trust. It was not only the pain of the source, it was the pain of remaining faithful. When everyone expected me to fall, I searched for strength to stand. I could not understand your way, nor the reason for this trial. But something deep inside my soul still worshipped in the darkness. When the voice of despair was shouting, trying to make me abandon my faith, when suffering spoke louder than hope, I remembered who you are, the God who reigns above the heavens, had not lost control of my life. Even without answers to my questions, I knew you were still with me. Do you still hold fast your integrity? Yes, Lord. I will remain faithful, even if the whole world abandons me. I will not let go of your hand. If pain comes like a mighty storm, if the night seems it will never end, the God who sustained Job in the ashes will also sustain me. When even those you love begin to doubt, when hope seems far away, stand firm, because God is still in control. Even in the middle of the trial. was living in a foreign land where no one understood my faith. The laws around me kept changing, but my God remained the same. The threats were rising all around me. A decree tried to silence my voice, but in my private place of prayer, I still made my choice. Even knowing the danger, even knowing the cost, I opened the window of my soul and lifted my voice to God. Now when Daniel knew that the writing was signed, he went into his house, and his windows being open, in his chamber toward Jerusalem, he kneeled upon his knees 3 times a day, and prayed and gave thanks before his God, as he did aforetime. Even in exile I pray, even under pressure I remain. If the world tries to shut my voice, I will still call on his name. 3 times a day I bow down, with my windows open to the sky, because those who pray in a foreign land never lose God's guiding eye. I will not deny what I believe, even when everything says no. My faith is not ruled by kingdoms, but by the King I know. Exile cannot close the heavens, nor can it stop my prayer. For those who walk with the living God always find him there. Many have been pressured to abandon their devotion, but those who lift their voice in secret overcome every oppression. Doors may be shut before me, decrees may try to stand, but the presence of God within my life no one can command. Daniel knew that the writing was signed. He went into his house and prayed, as he did aforetime. Even in exile I pray, even in battle I will stand. For those who remain faithful in secret, God will honor their hand. And if today you are in a foreign place, not knowing how to endure, keep opening your window to heaven, because God is still secure. Exile does not change heaven. It only reveals who keeps praying. fell so deep, I saw no way out. Darkness surrounded my heart. The days kept passing without answers, and silence only deepened the pain. My feet were sinking in despair, and all my strength was almost gone. I cried out in the middle of the storm, wondering if God could still see me. I waited for the Lord through tears, not knowing what would come next. And when all hope seemed to be fading, His hand reached down to me.
He brought me up out of a horrible pit, out of the miry clay, and set my feet upon a rock, and established my steps.
He lifts me up again when I think I cannot go on. He calls me gently by my name and teaches me to keep moving on. When the world says it is over, God begins to rebuild. For His grace is greater than my fall, and His love never gives up on me. There were nights that felt endless, there were tears nobody saw. But while I was weeping in secret, the Lord was working for my good. The pit was never my destination. The mud was never meant to stay. The hand that formed the earth and heavens reached down and lifted me again. How many hearts are trapped in discouragement, believing they will never rise? How many have lost all their hope without the strength to carry on? But the God who heard David's cry still hears those who call His name. And from the deepest place of sorrow, His voice is still responding.
He brought me up out of a horrible pit, out of the miry clay, and set my feet upon a rock, and established my steps.
Today I sing a brand new song, because the Lord has carried me through. What once seemed impossible became the miracle God would do. If you are in the depths today, do not stop believing yet. The God who lifted me again can lift you up as well. Maybe today you only see the mud. Maybe everything feels lost. But God still goes into the deepest places to lift up His children and place them upon the rock. place them upon the rock. I was not the strongest among others, no greatness to my name. While the world chose only the shining, I was left in shame. I didn't have what made me noticed, no title to display. But something deep inside my spirit God chose anyway. What the world calls weak and broken, God turns into might. And what no one ever valued, He brings into the light. But God hath chosen the foolish things of the world to confound the wise. And God hath chosen the weak things of the world to confound the things which are mighty. Even small I am chosen, even weak I am His. For the power is not inside me, but in the God I live in. What the world rejects and discards, God lifts with His own hand. For He writes His greatest story in the hearts He has planned. I learned it's not about appearance, no strength that makes me win. It's when God steps into my story and chooses me within. He doesn't need great reputation or status to use me. He only seeks a willing heart to trust Him faithfully. How many feel forgotten with no worth to their name? But God chooses the unlikely to reveal His flame. He takes the overlooked ones and makes them strong in Him. For the glory is not man's own, but God's light within. God hath chosen the weak things of the world. God hath chosen even small I am chosen, even simple I am His. And what once looked impossible now belongs to His. And if today you feel like nothing with no direction near, remember God has chosen you with love and purpose clear. God uses the weak to reveal His power. I was not the strongest among others. I was weeping silently in the temple, with a heart full of deep pain. Everyone saw only my sorrow, but no one understood my shame. The humiliation weighed upon me, and barrenness was my cross. But even when no one could hear me, I poured my heart to God. I was not just speaking prayers, I was pouring out my soul. And in the place no one could see me, God was making me whole. For this child the Lord has granted me my petition, which I asked of Him. Hannah's tears were heard by heaven in the perfect time of God. What seemed completely impossible became a miracle of love. I laid my sorrow on the altar, and God turned grief into song. For those who cry before the heavens never cry in vain for long. I left the temple fully changed, even before the answer came. For when God touches the broken heart, hope begins to flame. What was shame became a promise. What was pain became praise. And the womb that was once silent was filled with God's grace. How many women cry in secret, thinking God will not respond? But He collects each hidden tear before it even falls beyond. No prayer is ever forgotten, no cry is ever lost in space. The God who heard Hannah in the temple still answers with His grace. For this child I pray, and the Lord has granted me my petition, which I asked of Him. Hannah's tears were heard in heaven, and the promise came to life. The God who turns barrenness to blessing never leaves a heart in strife. And if today you are still crying, not knowing what will be, remember, God still listens, and He will answer you and me. A cry in the altar always becomes God's answer. pain for many years, a bleeding that would not end. I spent everything I had tried, yet still no healing came. No one could ever help me, no doctor could make me whole. I felt completely forgotten, with nothing left in my soul. But I heard about a name that makes the impossible arise, and hope was born inside my heart, saying, you will survive. Daughter, thy faith hath made thee whole. Go in peace and be whole of thy plague. He heals even without explanation, just with a touch of power. When I touched his holy garments, everything changed that hour. It was not man, not medicine, it was heaven touching me. For when Jesus passes near us, even sickness must flee. I touched him hidden in the crowd, afraid of being ashamed. But in that moment of pure faith, my whole life was reclaimed. He stopped and called me by my name, even though I tried to hide, and said, your faith has made you whole. And I came back alive. How many have been trying for years without a single sign? But one touch in Jesus' presence can change your whole design. He does not need explanation, nor time to make things new. When he decides to move in power, nothing can block what he will do. Daughter, thy faith hath made thee whole. Go in peace and be whole of thy plague. He heals even without explanation. He can heal you too today. If you reach out for his presence, he will make a new way. And if you have tried everything and nothing worked before, Jesus is still passing near you. Just touch him once more. One touch in Jesus, and everything can change. I was in silence in the spirit, when a voice called me from above, saying, come up here. And everything changed in love. A door I had never seen before opened right in front of me. And the weight of the earth behind me fell as I stepped into mystery. It was not just a vision, it was the throne revealed. and everything I knew on earth became unreal. After this I looked, and behold, a door was opened in heaven. And the first voice which I heard was as it were of a trumpet talking with me, which said, "Come up hither, and I will shew thee things which must be hereafter." When heaven opens over me, nothing holds me down again. I saw eternity's doorway calling me to rise and ascend. The voice that breaks all limits takes me beyond what I see. For when heaven is manifested, the earth must bend its knee. I saw the beginning of glory, a light that never fades, and everything that once felt limited lost its power and its chains. The world became so small and distant before the throne of God, and what once looked like the end of my journey was just where I had begun. Who can stand when heaven opens? Who can ignore his call? If he speaks from highest glory, he will carry through it all. Nothing on earth compares to what the heavens show, and those who enter that dimension will never be low. After this I looked, and behold, a door was opened in heaven. When heaven opens over me, I am never the same again. For the voice that comes from the eternal throne calls me to rise and ascend. And if today you feel the burden of this world upon your soul, listen to the voice from heaven saying, "Come up and know." When heaven opens, nothing on earth stays the same. I saw fear closing in behind me, and the Red Sea right in front. The sound of chariots growing louder, and pressure breaking what I had once become. There was no way left to escape, no path that I could see. The desert felt like my prison, and the enemy was after me. I cried out in desperation, not knowing what would come to be. But God spoke in the silence of heaven before the miracle I could see. Then Moses stretched out his hand over divided. God opens the sea for me when there is nowhere left to go. He makes an impossible pathway where no one else can go. What looked like certain death to me became my victory song. The God who opens ways from nothing is still the one who leads me on. The waters rose like towering walls, and fear was shouting in my mind. But the voice of the Lord was stronger, saying, I have not left you behind. The enemy stayed far behind me, and I watched the miracle unfold. The very sea that once had trapped me became the path that made me bold. How many times I thought of giving up with no direction left to find. But God writes in impossible places stories that are truly divine. He does not need an open doorway, He opens the sea instead. And where there is no hope or answer, that is where His power is spread. Then Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and the Lord drove the sea back with a strong east wind all that night, and made the sea dry land, and the waters were divided. God opens the sea for me, even when everything says no. The impossible bows before Him, wherever His power goes. And if I face an impossible moment, I will not stop believing still. The same God who split the waters will carry me by His will. The sea may be too big to cross, but God is bigger than it all. I stood before a death decree. A trumpet sound demanded my bow, but I knew in whom I had believed, and I would not bow down. The king raised his voice in anger, and the whole world pushed on me. But deep inside my heart there was a greater truth I could see. They said, who will save you now, before the fire and the flame? But I knew even in the trial, God's presence stays the same. I see 4 men loose, walking in the midst of the fire, and they have no hurt, and the form of the fall in the fiery furnace, but the fire could not destroy. For in the midst of burning flames, the Son of God brought joy. The fire cannot burn whom God protects. The furnace cannot take their life. When God steps into my trial, even darkness has to hide. They tied my hands and feet in chains and threw me into the flame. But what was meant to end my life became the place He came. I was not alone inside the fire. Someone walked there with me, and in the heat of greatest trial, He brought heaven down to me. How many have been thrown into fire for refusing to deny their faith? But it is in the greatest pressure that God reveals His grace. Chains fall down and doors are opened, and death turns into life. For the God who walks within the fire is the one who ends the night. Lo, I see 4 men loose, walking in the midst of the fire, and they have no hurt, and the form of the 4th is like the Son of God. 4 men in the fiery furnace, yet none of them were lost. For in the middle of persecution, God Himself paid the cost. And if today you're in the fire, do not think you will be consumed. The God of Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego is walking there with you. The fire may be real, but greater is the one with you. I saw the weight of this broken world, tears no one could fully count, hearts marked by deep sorrow, while pain seemed to surround. Death was walking among the living, and grief filled every space. But deep inside there was a promise that time would not erase. A voice came from the eternal throne and changed reality, declaring that the end of sorrow had been set by divinity. And God shall wipe away all tears from their eyes, and there shall be no more death, neither sorrow nor crying, neither shall there be any more pain, for the former things are passed away. The new earth is already coming, where no more pain will stay. God wipes away all tears, and sorrow fades away. No more or fear, for heaven is preparing a place where all is clear. I see beyond the present moment a reality without end, where perfect peace will reign forever, and all in Him will mend. What feels so heavy in this season will vanish in His light, for the promise of the eternal leads us into life. How many cry while waiting, not knowing what is ahead, but the God who rules tomorrow has already conquered dread. He does not only comfort, it makes all things new again, and turns the darkest pages into eternal love's plan. And God shall wipe away all tears from their eyes. The new earth is already coming, and nothing can delay. The eternal kingdom is prepared for those who choose His way. Will heal and restore again. No more pain. Only eternity with God.